The late afternoon sun poured its golden light over the small house by the edge of the village. Dee was fixing the bamboo fence while Huyen prepared rice in the kitchen, her hands moving with the calm rhythm of daily life. Maya, cheerful as always, chased the little dog around the yard, her laughter filling the air. It was a moment of peace, the kind of ordinary happiness they had built with effort after storms of the past. Then, suddenly, the dog barked sharply. Dee lifted his head, surprised, and walked toward the gate. His steps slowed when he saw a familiar figure standing there. The man looked thinner than before, his clothes dusty from travel, his eyes carrying a mixture of weariness and longing. "Adam," Dee whispered, his voice almost breaking. At the sound of the name, Huyen froze in the kitchen, her hands trembling. Memories rushed back the days when Adam was their quiet but steadfast companion, and the painful moment when they parted ways, leaving for the north. She stepped out, her eyes wide, unable to believe what she was seeing. Adam gave a faint smile. He looked at them the way a man looks at something he had been searching for endlessly, and feared he would never see again. There were no words at first, only silence heavy with emotions too deep to name. Maya tilted her head curiously. "Mother, Uncle Adam is here?" she asked, her innocent voice cutting through the tension. Dee's chest tightened. Huyen bit her lip, fighting back the tears that already blurred her vision. It was as if time itself had stopped, carrying them back to the moment they last stood together, except now, Adam was no longer the same. There was something heavier in his gaze, something unspoken waiting to surface. That silence, the kind that weighs on the heart more than words, wrapped around them all as Adam slowly stepped forward, carrying with him stories they were not yet ready to hear. They sat together around the old wooden table, the one Dee had built with his own hands. The room was dimly lit, the smell of freshly cooked rice still lingering in the air. Maya sat quietly on Huyen's lap, sensing the heaviness of the moment even though she did not understand it fully. For a long time, no one spoke. The sound of crickets outside and the faint creak of bamboo in the wind filled the silence. Dee kept his eyes on Adam, searching for the right words but finding none. Huyen clasped her hands tightly, her heart restless with questions, fears, and a strange tenderness she could not explain. It was Adam who finally broke the silence. His voice was low, almost trembling. "I never thought I would stand here again," he said. "There were days I believed I would never find my way back to you." Dee's brow furrowed, and Huyen felt her throat tighten. The quiet strength in Adam's words carried the weight of countless lonely miles, the scars of a journey none of them could yet imagine. Adam lowered his gaze, his fingers tracing the grain of the wooden table as if trying to hold himself steady. "After you left for the north, I tried to continue, but everything felt empty. Then I went searching for my mother. It was a road filled with hunger, with nights I slept on bare ground, and mornings when I thought I wouldn't survive another day. I carried wounds, not only on my body but deep inside. Still, I kept walking." The room fell still again. Huyen's breath caught as she realized how much pain he must have endured in silence. Dee clenched his fists under the table, every word from Adam striking something inside him, something he didn't want to admit aloud. Adam looked up, his eyes glistening in the flickering light. "What gave me strength," he whispered, "was remembering the warmth I once felt here with you, with little Maya. Those memories kept me alive when I thought I was already gone." Dee felt a sting in his eyes. Huyen could no longer hold back her tears. Maya, sensing her mother's trembling, wrapped her small arms around Huyen's neck. The unspoken words that had been buried for years now filled the space between them. Fragile yet powerful, breaking open hearts that had long been locked away. Adam's voice trembled as he went on, but his eyes held steady on the two people before him. For years he had carried these words in silence, fearing they would never be heard, fearing they would be too late. There were moments, Adam said softly, when I wanted to give up, when the road was nothing but mud, when the hunger clawed at my bones, and I had no strength left to walk. But then I would remember Huyen's gentle voice telling Maya bedtime stories, or the way Dee once shared the last piece of bread with me, even though he was starving himself. Those memories, they were my shelter in the storm. Dee's jaw tightened. He had never known the depth of Adam's struggle, never imagined how much his quiet presence had meant. The weight of it struck him like a blow, raw and undeniable. Huyen pressed a trembling hand to her chest. She had always known Adam to be kind, steadfast in silence, but hearing the truth now was like opening a wound she didn't realize had been buried inside her. Tears blurred her vision, spilling down her cheeks before she could stop them. Adam's next words were the ones that shattered the last of their defenses. I never told you this, he whispered, his voice breaking, but you were my family, the only family I ever had, even when I walked alone through darkness. In my heart I carried you with me. Without that, I would not be alive today. The room fell into stillness, heavy with the sound of hearts breaking open. Dee turned away, but the tears betrayed him, rolling hot down his face. He wiped at them roughly, ashamed of his own weakness, yet unable to stop. Huyen leaned into Maya, sobbing quietly as if years of hidden emotions had been released all at once. The unspoken words had finally been spoken, and in that moment, the three of them sat bound together, not by blood, but by something even deeper: pain, memory, and love that had endured through distance and silence. The tears came quietly at first, but soon they poured like rain that had been waiting too long behind the clouds. Dee leaned forward, elbows on the table, his hands covering his face. The strong man who had always carried hardship without complaint was undone by a single truth: that he had been someone's strength when he thought he had nothing to give. Huyen reached across the table, her hand finding Adam's trembling fingers. Her tears fell freely now, glistening under the dim light. Adam, she whispered, her voice breaking, why didn't you ever tell us before? Why did you bear all of this alone? Adam looked at her, his lips quivering, and for the first time in years, his face softened into something fragile. Because I was afraid, he admitted. Afraid that if I spoke, I would lose you. Afraid that my feelings, my weakness, would only be a burden. So I carried them in silence, until they nearly broke me. The words cut through the room like a blade and healed like a bomb all at once. Maya, still too young to understand the full weight of what was spoken, slid down from her mother's lap and walked around the table. With her small arms, she wrapped herself tightly round Adam's side. Uncle Adam, she said with innocent certainty, you don't have to be afraid. You have us now. Adam's breath caught. He lifted a trembling hand and rested it on Maya's hair, his chest rising and falling with quiet sobs he could no longer contain. For the first time in years, he did not feel like a wanderer lost in the dark. Dee wiped his tears with the back of his hand, then reached out to clasp Adam's shoulder firmly. No words were spoken, but the gesture said everything: that he was not alone anymore. That bonds once broken had not been lost, only waiting to be found again. The small house, once filled with silence, now held something else. The sound of hearts mending, of tears washing away old pain, of family being remade in the simplest, most human way. Night descended softly over the village. The stars blinked above the dark hills, and the cool air drifted through the open window of the little house. Inside, the three adults and the child remained gathered around the table, no longer strangers divided by time and distance, but a circle of warmth held together by tears and truth. The oil lamp flickered, casting shadows across their faces. Dee poured Adam a cup of warm tea, his hands steady now. "You are here," Dee said quietly, his voice rough but certain. "That is enough. Whatever happened before, tonight we start again." Adam looked at him, surprised, then lowered his gaze as emotion welled in his chest. He held the cup carefully, as though it were more than tea. It was a gift of belonging, a gift he thought he had lost forever. Huyen leaned back slightly, brushing her tears away. Her face was tired, yet there was a softness in her eyes that had not been there before. "You don't have to carry your burdens alone anymore," she told Adam. "This house may be small, but there will always be a place for you here." Adam's throat tightened. For years he had dreamed of hearing words like these, words that lifted the weight of loneliness from his heart. Maya yawned, her small head resting against her mother's shoulder. "We're a family," she murmured sleepily, "and families stay together." Silence followed her words, but it was no longer heavy. It was gentle, filled with an unspoken agreement. The past had been painful, the road long and merciless, but here, in the quiet night, they had found one another again. Adam exhaled slowly, as if releasing years of sorrow into the air. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to believe in tomorrow not as a lonely traveler, but as part of something greater than himself. And so, beneath the stars, with nothing more than a lamp to light their faces, Dee, Huyen, Adam, and little Maya shared a promise without words. Whatever storms might come, they would no longer face them alone. Sometimes the most powerful words are the ones left unspoken for too long. Adam's journey shows us that silence can become a heavy burden, one that isolates and weakens the heart. Yet when truth is finally spoken with courage, it has the power to heal wounds, to restore broken connections, and to remind us of the bonds that truly matter. Dee, Huyen, and Adam teach us that family is not only made of blood, but of kindness, sacrifice, and shared memories. Love does not vanish with distance or hardship. It waits, quietly, until we are brave enough to embrace it again. The story reminds us, as listeners and readers, that we should not hide our gratitude, our pain, or our love. Life is fragile, and people are not meant to carry their struggles in silence. To speak from the heart is to open the door to healing not only for ourselves, but also for those who care for us. In the end, the greatest gift we can give to one another is not wealth or comfort, but the assurance that no one has to walk their path alone.